Today, I want to tell you why you should always pray and never give up. Maybe you keep finding yourself giving up right before you experience victory. Welcome to the Midweek Motivation Podcast, where we bring practical help for your faith and life. Here's today's episode. Hey, my name is Gabe Kolstad, and I want to tell you that even Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield just kept going. Did you know the Chicken Soup for the Soul guys, they presented their original idea to over 130 publishers, and they got turned down because nobody thought anyone wanted to hear all these inspirational stories. They even got dropped by their agent, but they just kept going. Can you imagine if they gave up after 129 tries? And they missed out on the 250 Chicken Soup for the Soul books. They missed out on the 500 million copies of those books that are circulating around the world today and the difference they've made in so many people's lives. I mean, hey, we just can't be giving up just because things get hard. And Jesus Christ himself said he wanted us to do this. I just keep imagining that a half mile down your road, there's a miracle waiting for you. Don't give up. Luke 18:1 says, one day Jesus told his disciples a story to show how they should always pray and never give up. I just love those words. Always pray, never give up. Do you know the Greek word there for give up is ekakeo. Ekakeo. And what it means is to be negatively influenced by the outcome of experiencing inner weariness. To be negative influenced by the outcome of experiencing inner weariness. You're just worn down. I mean, you've gotten enough no's in life. You've had enough resistance, you know? Your spouse just hasn't been open to this thing that you want to do, or your kids just won't seem to come along with your parenting. You know, the workplace, that nobody's paying attention to your idea. Maybe in your faith, no one around you is going the same direction as you. And it's so tempting to look at those circumstances and go, I'm just going to quit. This past weekend, Pastor Stephen Rady taught a message called Standing Firm. And it was really exciting to think about how we have all these tools at our disposal. He ended with prayer. And this is why Jesus talks about this aspect of persistence, of breakthrough, of power, of victory being prayer. He tells a couple of parables in Luke 18, Jesus does. He says, I want you to know about this unjust judge who wasn't going to give justice to this woman, but because she persisted, he did it. He says, I want you to hear about this Pharisee, this teacher of religious law, and this other side of the coin, the tax collector who was so humble. The Pharisee was so prideful. The tax collector was so humble, and he beat his chest and he said, God, have mercy on me. And Jesus says, God had mercy on him because he was persistent and because he was humble, because he kept at it. And I think it's so interesting what happens in Luke 18 when Jesus is thinking about how people need this message of persistence, of always praying and never giving up. He teaches this in these parables. He's trying to help his disciples understand because they were experiencing so much resistance. And then he meets somebody, and it perfectly illustrates exactly what he was trying to say about always praying and never giving up. I'm going to read this to you from Luke chapter 18, verses 39 and following. It says, "Be quiet," the people in front yelled at him. At who? At this blind beggar. Jesus was wandering through the crowds, and as always, people were asking for his help. And they were yelling, the crowds were yelling to this blind beggar, "Be quiet." But he only shouted louder, it says, "Son of David, have mercy on me." I mean, this is picking up in the middle of a story where this guy was bothering everybody because he knew who was wandering through the crowd. He knew the power of Jesus. And so he kept yelling, "Son of David," that was Jesus' nickname, "have mercy on me." He knew if he could get Jesus' attention, something would change. And it says in verse 40, this is so interesting. It says, when Jesus heard him, he stopped. And I love that. I love that about Jesus. If you persistently come to Jesus, if you always pray and never give up, what's going to happen is he's going to stop what he's doing. This is how God responds to our persistence, to our faith, to our prayers. He's going to stop, and he's going to pay attention to your need. It says, when Jesus heard him, he stopped and ordered that the man be brought to him. As the man came near, Jesus asked him, listen to this question, "What do you want me to do for you?" "Lord," he said, "I want to see." I've thought about this 1,000 times. If Jesus Christ was standing right in front of you, or if he was standing right in front of me, and you only had a split second to answer his question, what do you want me to do for you? What would you say? I mean, I don't even know if I'd be able to come up with the right answer. I might say $1 million. I want my back not to hurt when I wake up in the morning. And I would probably be sitting there going like, dang it, no, there was something better. I should have asked for the big one, And this guy, here's the cool thing. This guy had premeditated his request. He knew that someday God was going to be coming around. And so Jesus goes, this is why I want you to always pray and never give up. In verse 42, it says, and Jesus said, all right, receive your sight. Your faith has healed you. Instantly, the man could see, and he followed Jesus, praising God, and all who saw it praised God too. I mean, this is so cool because this blind beggar was persistently shouting. And he wasn't whispering over in the corner. He wasn't doing it just once. He didn't do it once and then maybe eke out one more. I mean, he was going to shout it and say it and always pray and never give up until he was healed. And that is what Jesus is asking us to do. I love how Paul the Apostle confirms this teaching. In Galatians chapter 6-9, Paul the Apostle says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. He says, at just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Same word. If we don't succumb to the weariness in our soul from all the resistance, sometimes from the attacks, sometimes from the denials, sometimes from the long waiting of when is this breakthrough going to happen? When is the answer going to come? For you might be stressing about finances, going like, God, we've asked so many times. We're waiting here. And Jesus is saying, I want to teach you the importance of always praying and never giving up. That's what he has for you. So I want to ask you, what do you want Jesus to do for you? Maybe you're tuning in here and faith is maybe something that's new to you. Maybe you're checking it out. Maybe you just have a need that's so big that you popped onto a spiritual podcast, hoping maybe somebody would say something that could help you. What would you ask Jesus Christ if he stood right in front of you and asked you that question and you knew he could do it? He would ask you, what do you want me to do for you? I hope you think about that. I hope you come up with an answer, and I hope you start persistently shouting it to God, to wait for him until he does it. That's what he wants for you and me, and he's promised it so many times, and I've experienced it in my own life, and I know he can do it for you. I hope you can take those words to heart this week and have an awesome week. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Midweek Motivation. To make sure you don't miss any content in the future, please subscribe, share, and if you enjoyed this, give us a like, and consider popping by a Westside service some weekend. You can find out more at westsidecommunitychurch.com.